Well, good afternoon again. It's a pleasure being here for my first Beyond Expo. I would like to start saying a little things about Latin America and why the region is a hot topic for investments. Here today we will explore opportunities, challenges, and trendings shaping the future of innovation and entrepreneurship in the region. We'll talk about investments, investment strategies, and about success stories, and maybe unsuccess stories that are driving the growth of Latin America tech ecosystem. I'm Lucas Amorim. I'm chief editor of Exame magazine, the leading business magazine in Brazil and in Latin America, and the leading business platform in the region. It's a pleasure being here and trying to understand what will drive the growth in Latin America for the next few years. I'd like to start asking yourselves to introduce yourselves in maybe 1 minute, if that's possible. I would like to start with Sergio, and then we can come.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lu, for having me here. I'm Sergio Yates from Antera. I'm a partner and operations director.
Hello, my name is Carlos Pessoa. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I'm managing director of GP Investments, and at GP, I oversee our VC fund called G2D Investments. We have a $200 million fund that invests not only in Brazil, but also in Europe and US.
Hi, I'm Oscar Ramos. I'm Spanish, but based in China, investing across all the emerging markets and, of course, in Latin America. So it's a great pleasure to be here today and help a little bit and contribute to building this bridge between Latin America and Asia that I not only believe there's a great opportunity, I actually walk the talk by constantly making more opportunities for collaboration. So I'm very excited about this initial event and very grateful for everybody that came from very, very far away, because I go to Latin America, so I know how far it is. So I'm very grateful that all of you made this trip to come here today.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, would like to thank Ian and Dr. Lu for organizing this Asia Latam Tech Forum within Beyond Expo. It's a pleasure to be here and to share the stage with my co-panelists. I'm William, and I'm a partner at Monashees. Monashees is the pioneer and premier VC platform in Latin America. We've started back in 2005, invested in about 150 companies across the region and beyond, when there is a Latin American angle. Yeah, pretty much it. Happy to explore more during the panel.
Very, very nice. We have an interesting panel today because Sergio and Carlos are coming to China for the first time, and William and Sergio, William and Oscar live or have lived in China for a lot of years, know the language, know the habits, and besides that, everybody know Latin America very well and know the opportunities and challenges for maybe the last 20 to 30 years. I would like to start with you, William. Looking back to maybe the late 10 years and looking to the future, why Latin America and why now?
That's a good question. No, it's a good one, Lucas, and thank you for bringing that up. I mean, well, we've been seeing ever since the start of this new wage or venture capital in Latin America. We like to date it back to 2010. Is when we saw like the first, we started a little bit earlier. We like to say we started running this marathon 5 kilometers before the starting line, but it was good for us to test the waters and see different models of what could work. And in 2010, we saw the first investment by a major U.S. VC firm in Latin America in a tech company. It was in a company called Pessoa, founded by Julius Vasconcelos. It was a company, interesting enough, later sold to Paitu. It was one of the first investments of Paitu in Brazil. They acquired Pessoa. And then we saw like the start of the industry. We saw like an inflow of especially early stage capital. Other early stage funds were created in the region, and in this time we saw entrepreneurs like Edu Lotelier, who's here at the audience, founded Get Ninjas. He was part of this first generation of tech entrepreneurs who saw the opportunity in Latam, the many inefficiencies we had that, and saw that there could be an option to, pursue a career as a tech entrepreneur, start a company and build it with the support of venture capital. It happens there was the early stage environment was set at the time, and later on you asked me about 10 years, then let's move to 2015, 2016, when we started to see growth capital flowing to the region, and we started to see the success stories, like the major exits that really inspired a generation of very good young talent to pursue a career in technology. So nowadays, why now and why Latam? Going to your question. We have a generation of proven and experienced founders in Latin America. We have created this early stage VC industry in the region. We have helped put Latin America in the global map of tech. We have created world-class tech companies, and this is not me saying, we hear that spontaneously from our global co-investors that see the global forest. They are telling us, in my global portfolio, some of the best founders and best companies come from Latin America. So, and we are seeing more and more, we still rely a lot on international growth capital so that companies can grow, but we are seeing more and more like VCs in the region seeing the opportunity and trying to also foster an environment for growth capital. So many of the ingredients are there, so that we can see great things happening. And still, there's a lot to be done. So if you take like VC investments as a percentage of GDP, in Latin America, it's only 0.06%, whereas in India, Southeast Asia, and China, is about 0.3%. If you see like the largest companies in terms of market cap, you maybe have only one or two tech companies in Latin America. Whereas you look at the more mature markets, among the largest companies, you see tech companies, most of them. So we are still in the first 3 minutes of the game, I'm sure.
Sergio, William said the ingredients are there. What is lacking for us to make a good dish, to make a good recipe?
In which terms?
Why Latin America now is a good opportunity for investments? We have the ingredients. What do we need to attract more capital and to make a good dish in this saying that we have the ingredients? What do we lack?
Well, we are more focused in Brazil, and we have a market. We have very young and good entrepreneurs. I think we have this disposition. So it's like in China, we are ready to receive investment, to receive more money, to sustain the companies that have been created. Right now we are building our third fund, and we are trying to attract more LPs to the region. So it's okay. We are happy to be here and ready to invest.
I can chime in. As William pointed out, I believe Brazil and Latin America is in its infancy in terms of venture capital investment. There's plenty of opportunity to grow. The ratio that he pointed about the GDP, the venture capital per GDP, we are 6 times behind China, 10 times behind the US. So there's plenty room to grow. Brazil or Latin America has like 32 unicorns, and China has 350 unicorns, so 10 times behind. And on the other hand, Latin America as a whole has a really good internet penetration, smartphone penetration. So Brazil has 80% of smartphone penetration, which is bigger than China. Brazil, for instance, is the second largest market for Kawaii, the video platform that is popular in China. But in Brazil, it's the second largest market. So Brazilians are very forward-thinking, Latin Americans as well. And it's a market that is big. If you look like each one of the countries individually, they might not be as big. But if you get like Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, we're talking about like almost 400 million people. And it's a sizable market for any tech company, for any tech investor to invest and get, their money's back at multiple times. So we are very bullish in Latam, even though 1/3 of our portfolio is Brazil, Latam, another third is the US and Europe. US and then another third Europe. So we are pretty diversified, but we see that Latam has a lot of potential to grow way beyond that we haven't seen in the recent years.
Oscar, you can be the bad cop. You have a global south strategy, right? What differentiates Latin America among the other regions you are looking?
So I'll say that in general, Latin America, in my opinion, everything that you said, I agree with it. Okay, I think that there's a lot of work that has been done. I think there's incredible talent. There's already world-leading companies that were created in Latin America. No? Like Brazil has the largest digital bank in the world. So there's many companies that are really companies that prove that the asset class of venture capital is very good. Where, in my point of view, where I see the opportunity, especially in this collaboration between Latin America and Asia, is in the weaknesses in Latin America and the strengths in Asia. So I don't remember the numbers, but I remember looking at a report by a firm called Atlantico that was talking about the level of digitization of industries in Latin America, and it was very surprising. With the economic development, the education, many indicators that prove that it is a society that is well developed, the level of digitization is very poor. The level of digitization of many industries is actually not on par with what you have in places like India or China is in my opinion gold standard in many of the aspects. You see a level of digitization of anything in life that is absolutely incredible. No, China did jump a generation, and many of the industries that went from manual to like half analog technology to fully digital, they skipped that step. No? Like people went from bicycle to electric vehicles, and combustion engine cars didn't really. I mean, they have a market here. There is such a big market that you have a lot. But today, in places like Shanghai, I think 90% of the cars and 100% of the motorbike, the bikes that you see, they're all EVs. So I think that's where there is a big opportunity. I think there's a gap there, and that's I think the way investors from Asia can take advantage of bringing not just the capital, but bringing also the expertise, the network, the connections. No? And I think that Brazil has been building that relationship, and you already have experience with some of the companies that have used their strategies to enter the market, to grow local leaders, to be part of these organizations. This is something that it was achieved in Southeast Asia, and you have a lot of the leading companies in Southeast Asia that were backed by capital from China with also strategic support, but also eventually that created local leaders that developed. No? And examples are like companies like the one you were talking, no? Like KY. That company is Kuaishou. Like in China, it's called Kuaishou. It's very very different name. No, the same way like Douyin is TikTok. So there's a different name for the company here, and it is a company that actually I think is more successful today in Brazil and Latin America than it is successful in China. And you have many of these opportunities where there's a lot of know-how that requires collaboration between the local knowledge that understands many of the ways things need to be resolved, that finding the talent, building the relationships, creating the trust, moving fast, as well as the more high-level know-how. No? So that for me is a key difference on this area.
When you look to the world map, who are we competing to in Latin America?
When you say competing to is in terms of attracting capital, I think today is, I'm not sure if it's competition. If I think from a capital perspective, I think the issue is that people here doesn't know enough. I think there's a need for education. That's what I think this forum is very valuable. Like yesterday there were 120 family offices that here, and many of them, they were learning and they were very open to understand and they were asking questions. Oh, but why is this company doing so well? No? And they were talking, Mercado Libre is doing amazingly, and its performance in the stock exchange is much better than this company. And they wanted to understand why did Nubank do that was so unique, so different, to be able to catch up in a way. So I think it's a lot of curiosity. So I think the competition is not real. I think it's more that there is a need to build this bridge. At the end of the day, it's far, like logistically it's far. But I think there's a big opportunity that is opening up. Personally, I think that any change creates new opportunities. And that's kind of like the way crisis is described in Chinese, so like Guijin, or like opportunity and risk all together. And there's now a lot of firms from Asia that are starting to localize activities to Latin America because it's closer, nearshoring is happening, and that's forcing or inviting people to move and have to have that need. So I don't think there's competition. I actually think that the positive experience in other markets is something that will create more, basically has already educated and created a path for that opportunity to happen.
Sergio, talk about trends and industries. What's hot in Latin America?
Well, I think the region is, it's clear a major leading in climate change, in renewable energy, and everything that can explore, also can explore our mineral areas and things in this way. So that's what we are trying to support and try to find some entrepreneurs that can lead in companies in this area.
Carlos, what are we lacking to have more big companies in these sectors? We have a lot of good entrepreneur landscape in Brazil. What's lacking for these companies be a global player, be a leader in Latin America, and receive more investment?
Well, so we have a portfolio in Brazil that is concentrated in fintechs, and I believe fintechs, are leading the way still as the main sector for investment in Latin America, especially in Brazil, where we have the central bank, that is very pro-business and developing new regulations that foster competition, where those startups can take the place of the incumbents, right? So this is happening massively, and the VC money also explains that. So a lot of the VC money in Latin America goes to fintechs as well. One of the main bottlenecks that we have is technical talent. And not only technical talent, but technical talent that can speak English, right? So the level of education that we have there is still a bottleneck. There is a gap, and the vast majority of the developers that can speak English, are being hired by foreign companies. They're still based in Brazil, but they are working for Chinese companies, for American companies. Making more money than they would, if they were based in Brazil. So the competition for talent is global now, and this might harm, the local economies because, without talent, even with money, you cannot make, things happen.
Or you can have an employee that's working for a Brazilian company and at the same time for an Asia company at night.
Yeah, but it was common during COVID, right? So it's funny because several developers were working for 7 companies that, it's like 7, 8 companies at the same time, getting, stock options. And because the companies were growing so fast, nobody was actually managing them. So, the guy was just making money and having free options. So it did happen, but now because of all the layoffs, so companies became much more focused on productivity. So I don't think there's space for this to happen any longer. But in a short period of time, there was this arbitrage.
William, Monashees has a portfolio of 100 companies. What's your focus and what's getting hotter in the region?
Thank you for the question, Lucas. It would be good to complement what Carlos and Sergio said. So actually, we invested so far in 148 companies. We have about 92 active in the portfolio. And I agree with what Carlos said. Like the regulator in Brazil being regulated in favor of innovation has helped a lot and opened many possibilities for entrepreneurs and has been inspiring other regulators, not only in Latin America, but across the world, to do something similar things to what they are doing there. So the instant payment, for instance, we call it PIX. It was inspired by UPI in India, but it was adopted much faster. And if you see the level of transactions, I think the last number the central bank gives statistics every month was about 2 trillion reais, so about $400 billion of transactions every month, and a growth of 40% year over year. Not to mention BRICS, not to mention digital currency. So this opens a possibility for many opportunities in fintech for entrepreneurs to explore. We see, I agree with Oscar that we might be a little bit behind in digitalization of small businesses, but it's definitely a trend, and we've seen it more and more. So enterprise software, this is something that we've been investing a lot in B2B, and it's an opportunity more recently in recent years. You asked about innovation coming out of Latam. I agree with Sergio that in clean tech, we see that. So we have a natural, because of the natural resources we have there, so we have this disposition to see innovation coming out of Latam in clean tech. Still, for many industries, we must admit, it's still an execution risk. So it's a challenging execution, not innovation. But in a few areas, and clean tech is one of them, we can truly see innovation coming out of Latam. And just to conclude, there is obviously AI. So there are different layers in artificial intelligence. Obviously, infrastructure intelligence will be more concentrated with the large players, where there is more capital and more development, like in the US, like here in Asia. But when you go to mid-layer, we can see some opportunities, and we've backed a few founders that are exploring that, Latin American founders exploring that in the US, and especially application that is closer to the end user in different industries that we are seeing more and more in Latam, and it's definitely a trend we are seeing now, and we will probably see in the coming years.
We have just a few minutes. I'd like to ask Oscar about cultural barriers. Is there a problem for Chinese and Asian investors to invest in Latin America?
I think you were talking. Actually, I forgot to add that into the answer earlier. I think it was very long response. So I said, okay, let's move on that. You talk about what is the challenges? No? What are the complexities? I think language might be an issue, but to be honest, also sometimes here the language command in English as a neutral language is not the best. So that's going to be an issue. But I do believe that the cultural aspect and the need for governance, transparency, and a way to let people that is far, that don't understand the dynamic, that don't have certain types of backgrounds on how certain things are done, it is quite challenging. No, this is something that we're constantly aware, because we're working, I start my day working with people in Southeast Asia, then I move to South Asia, go to Africa, and then I finish with Latin America. And I go through all of these very different backgrounds with very different foundational values, etc. And that becomes very problematic. So the challenge is that especially when you come from a culture and a market that is very large, sometimes you as the large market don't have as much awareness, and that's actually something that happens a lot with. I see that happening a lot with even with U.S. funds that operate in some of our markets, where sometimes they have certain expectations in terms of language skills or even examples. No, like they might come and use example based on baseball, and it's like, sorry, no, cricket. You know cricket? We play cricket or like badminton. They will use examples that would be, and that creates distance, that creates confusion. Sometimes people will communicate in a very different way. No, like yesterday we were in a panel together, and there was one of the panelists was from Japan, no? And I think it was before the panel we were talking about the behavior of different people in boards. and how those that have this cultural awareness can create this capacity to create a more balanced board by sometimes changing. Sometimes you need to be more aggressive because the other team members or the other board members are very tame the way they will give feedback to the companies. But the companies need feedback and they need to change. Or sometimes the board members are very aggressive and you need to be able to relax and remove a bit of the pressure on the founders. So I think this is very important, and I do invite significantly everybody that wants to do business with Asia to create that awareness. I mean, you need to go as far as William has become like perfectly fluent in Mandarin and have like a best Chinese name. But I think having that awareness, it's definitely something that contributes to trust, which is quite critical. And and drink by Joe, that helps.
Carlos and Sergio, I would like to end the panel with you. Comparing the global economy right now and VC moment, are you optimistic for the late 2 to 3 years?
I'm definitely optimistic. I believe, the digitalization is a tailwind that you cannot deny. So, I believe every atom that becomes a byte will become a byte. And thus there's plenty of opportunities still to grow further and to digitalize industries and the people's life. So, regardless of the interest rate, if it's up or down, people will not go to a bank branch anymore. People won't buy a regular newspaper anymore. So this will just happen more often, and the need for VC money to fuel this innovation and to fuel this tailwind of digitalization is key, right? So there is a high correlation between VC money and the number of public traded companies, tech-based public traded companies. So in order to create the new economy, we need to have VC money coming in, and I see no way of going backwards from where we are, and especially in Brazil. So Brazil and Latin America. So Brazil, I believe, is 10 years behind China in terms of development or the adoption of technology, and the rest of Latin America is 10 years behind Brazil, probably. So there's plenty of opportunities because the gap is huge. So just copying, products and services that already work in China and bring to Brazil or Latin America, we can have a great businesses.
Sergio, what about you?
I'm super optimistic. To be here is a proof that there are so many opportunities to explore. We have one of the companies of our second fund opening a branch here in Macau to explore the region. So I think to be the first one to be here, and we have much more to do. I'm super optimistic.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.